The city wants to buy Blackberry Farm and Fremont Older, but first they'll need a utility tax. Building a vision for the year 2000 and beyond. What's in a book? No. What's in the library? More than you think. And developing important motor skills in your child through tennis. All this and more coming up on this edition of City Beat. City Beat, a half-hour magazine show focusing on news and events from the city of Cupertino.
There are people out there who need help, but don't have anyone with the right skills and knowledge to turn to for help with their taxes. You or your organization can be there for someone who needs help. Volunteer your time, and the IRS will volunteer the training to help make someone's taxes less taxing.
Development in Cupertino is big business. At more than $1 million per acre, developers have been very successful during the past few years with several major commercial and residential projects. In 1988, the historic Cali Mill, one of the last remaining landmarks of Old Cupertino, was leveled to make way for the modern-style Prometheus City Center complex. That same year, the Gregory Group was finishing construction on the 400-unit Seven Springs development, the largest single project of its kind in Cupertino history. The land was once an apricot orchard. And plans are still on the drawing board for yet several other projects, including a 250-room DoubleTree hotel. Many feel all this development is happening much too quickly and on too large of a scale. Open space areas are being gobbled up as soon as they are becoming available to developers. Traffic and population are also on the rise. In response to the concerns of its citizens, the City Council has reversed its thinking in recent years and has adopted a slow growth philosophy, taking on the role of protector rather than peddler of the last remaining parcels of open space.
Historically, there has always been a very strong feeling that we needed to have open space in this community. The feeling has been intensified in the last few years because we have had more development. There is more traffic, there is more density and more intensity.
And Cupertino citizens do feel that way. In a recent survey, 75% of all residents indicated that preserving existing parks and open space was among the top community concerns. Guided by public opinion, the council's crusade for preserving open space and recreational areas culminated last year in the purchase of the 6.2-acre Cupertino Sports Center, the former De Anza Racquet Club. The purchase was made to protect the property from plans for future commercial development. The $7.9 million acquisition proved a costly one for the city, not only in terms of the price tag, but in the divided community reaction that ensued.
The public voted down that last bond issue, and they promptly bought the courts for $7.9 million, went way deep into their pockets to pay for that, with no use for it. You know, there isn't even a use for it yet.
Yet perhaps the city's biggest challenge in the open space debate came just a few months ago, when the Cupertino Union School District announced it would be closing its Fremont Older Elementary School on Miller Avenue in order to construct a state-of-the-art facility at the Sedgwick School site. The several acres of sports playing fields at Fremont Older would become fair game for development if the city couldn't come up with some way to meet the $10.9 million price tag.
I think for Fremont Older, what we're looking at is really providing more youth sports facilities so that we can, have a really, much better sports playing field capability for the kids in our community. One of the problems we have in sports fields, if you go out and look at them, is that they're not well maintained and they're pretty heavily used, and if you don't have some surplus sites so that you can rotate, you basically beat them into the ground and they're basically unplayable.
And as the city was busily studying its options in the Fremont Older closure, the Nelson family announced that it was putting up for sale Blackberry Farm, the largest remaining recreational and historical site in the community. The 32 acres of land at Blackberry has been a Cupertino tradition for more than 35 years, noted throughout the Bay Area for its picnic areas, its swimming pools, and its golf course.
When my father and uncles purchased this place in '53, the biggest percentage of it was orchards. We were farmers, and cots and apricots and a few pears. And we've increased the picnic ground just gradually. The biggest single increase was in '64 when we built the golf course, and then we wiped out about 17 acres of orchard right then, because one year the price was so low that we couldn't pick, and the next year the wild pigeons wiped us out. So, you know. So that's why we decided we had to do something else. Farming at that time wasn't profitable at all.
Gradually, Blackberry Farm was transformed from a full orchard to the highly successful recreation area that it is today. Much of the land, especially the picnic grounds, has remained unchanged during that 35-year period. It is really for sentimental reasons, therefore, that the Nelsons first approached the city when they announced their decision to sell.
Obviously, this isn't the highest and best use for this land right now, but the reason we've been offered it to the city is the fact that, you know, we don't really want to see it develop because it means a lot to us. I mean, we've grown up here and lived with it for 38 years, and it's a beautiful piece of property.
The city, now faced with two major land purchases and no way to pay for them, began to consider several revenue-generating options to protect the areas from eager developers. At first, the city proposed two possible bond measures: an excise tax, which would have required all residents to pay a flat fee of $65 per year, or a 3% utility tax, a percentage tax based on a consumer's monthly PG&E and telephone bills. When surveys indicated that there wasn't enough voter support for either of the measures, the council lowered the amount of the utility tax to 2.4%, a level more acceptable to its citizens.
Well, that was a pretty precise number, and the way it was arrived at is we looked at the exact amount of money, the pared down version of what we could afford to buy, and that number was $25 million, and that's roughly $18 million for Blackberry Farm and roughly $10 million for the Fremont Older Elementary School site. And then by taking some of the revenue that would come from Blackberry Farm, because people do pay to use it, and applying that to Blackberry Farm, we got the amount down to $25 million. That's about as low as we could get it, and when we calculated that back into a utility rate that would meet that $25 million, it came out to 2.4.
So after many revisions and much discussion, the utility tax will finally appear on this November's ballot as Measure T. The bond measure is expected to raise the necessary $25 million so that the city may purchase the two properties. This is how it works. If a resident's monthly PG&E bill is, say, $75 and his or her telephone bill for all local and in-state calls totals $25 during the month, then he or she pays 2.4% of $100, or $2.40. The average resident, therefore, can expect to pay about $30 a year. Only local and in-state telephone calls will be taxed. Long-distance interstate calls are exempt. Senior citizens over 65 years of age are completely exempt from paying the utility tax. And the tax will be imposed over a 25-year period or sooner if the city should pay off the property before that time. If the measure passes, Cupertino will be just one of several other neighboring communities that are presently using utility taxes for various municipal acquisitions or improvements. But the real question is, will residents support it? Despite favorable results from the survey, there is a growing conservatism among most Americans regarding the faltering economy and an increasingly uncertain future.
I'm not worried about the people that are in there now, particularly. What I'm concerned about is this a commitment that can be maintained by the City of Cupertino for 25 years? We don't know what's going to happen between now and then. It may even be a commitment that shouldn't be maintained during that period. Something else may come up. I don't know what that would be, but the future is unknown.
Another question is the impact the tax may have on local businesses. While businesses will pay the same rate as residents, because they are higher utility users, they will naturally pay the greater share of the tax.
Small business, it probably won't make much difference, but big business is fairly energy intensive, and as a result, they will be paying a larger share with the utility tax than they would have been under the excise tax.
In a position paper made public in August, however, the Chamber of Commerce officially endorsed Measure T, noting overwhelming support for the measure from within the business community. The Chamber identified the proposed acquisition of Blackberry Farm in Fremont Older to be consistent with its philosophy for, quote, supporting the preservation and enhancement of the quality of life in the community. Even the largest utility users, big businesses, came out in support of the tax.
Well, I think the quality of life has always been a very important thing to Hewlett-Packard and to our employees. And since we're located in the city of Cupertino, then we would certainly want to support the local community's decisions regarding these kinds of things. And if open space, the purchase of Blackberry Farm and Fremont Older School is important to this community, then we would certainly want to pay our fair share.
I don't know any business or any person, for that matter, who voluntarily is going to wake up one morning and say, gee, I'd like to be taxed higher than I am now. But at the same time, the businesses in Cupertino feel that this is I think the term they use is a timeshare community, which is a rather unique and refreshing idea. They are the occupants of our city during the day, and we who are residents are the occupants during the evening. Only 15% of the people who work in Cupertino actually live here, so everyone else comes from another place. And the business community feels very strongly that they want to be a fair share supporter of the amenities and the various things that are availed of by those who live here. And although they are going to disproportionately pay a higher part of that tax burden, they are willing to do so.
Most of the major opposition regarding the utility tax is not coming from the business community, but from local citizens who have a different perspective regarding the urgency of the bond measure. Many residents feel that full development on these sites, particularly at Blackberry Farm, is unlikely to occur.
It will never really get developed because it's a floodplain, and there's only a few acres that could be used for development. The rest of it is always going to stay as it is because nobody could build on it. It's prohibited. I don't believe that any developer wants to get over there and tear up a golf course and start building housing.
I think there's a lot of people out there that hear the term open space and they say, oh great, you know, and just a knee-jerk reaction sort of on that. Yes, open space is a nice thing to have, but it's not something that we need a utility tax for necessarily. We've got plenty of open space right outside Cupertino.
And while residents debate over the urgency of the utility tax, the future of youth sports in the community could be impacted significantly by the fate of Measure T. At its September 4th meeting, the City Council agreed to set aside $1.1 million in park development funds designed to upgrade the condition of local sports playing fields citywide. If Measure T passes, most of the money will be used for the field improvements. If the measure fails, however, a large part of that fund, as explored in a previous agreement with the school district, could be used to purchase a small part of Fremont Older, thereby reducing significantly the amount of money available for field upgrades at other sites.
You want to have some areas where people can come to for recreation activities, and I think that's extremely important for myself personally, not only for the Little League. I look at it from my standpoint of soccer and Little League, and I also look at it from the standpoint of wanting to have citywide recreational facilities, and I think it then enhances the real estate value of each individual because people are going to buy where they have recreational facilities for everybody. So I see it as a tax that is worth the investment.
If Measure T does pass and the city purchases the properties, Blackberry Farm will be operated much like it is today, as a golf course, a picnic ground, and as a swimming area. A few improvements will be made to the facility in order to bring it up to code, and user rates may change slightly. The Fremont Older School site will be reserved strictly for recreational use and sports activities. Most agree, however, that in order to preserve the land for future generations, the measure must pass.
If the Blackberry Farm or if Fremont Older School are developed in houses or commercial businesses are placed thereon, that isn't an evil thing in itself. It does take away something that we now have, and I think it was Will Rogers who said you ought to buy land because they're not making any more of it. So we would like that land to stay relatively in the same state that it's in now.
You know, within our country, we tend to be very short-term focused, I mean, in the financial markets and everything else. And you know, unless you're a facilities planner for a company where you're looking at where companies are going to be in 30 years, I think most of us tend to have a pretty short-term view of life, and these open space issues are very, very long-term.
Reporting for City Beat, I'm Pete Coglanese. Coming up next on City Beat, checking out what's new at the library. And you've heard of Pee Wee Golf, now there's Pee Wee Tennis. Stay tuned.
Every year, thousands of babies die from choking, suffocating, or other breathing emergencies. Just imagine how many of them could be saved if only they came with instructions. Please learn American Red Cross Infant and Child CPR. American Red Cross. We help you help others.
Where can you find a collection of over 200,000 volumes of reading material, over 700 monthly publications, CDs, records, audio cassettes, video tape cassettes, computers for public use, all housed in a 3-story building that's open 7 days a week? The library. In this case, the Cupertino Public Library, which opened in 1971 and was remodeled in 1987. The remodeling opened up the inside of the building from 2 floors to all 3 floors for public use, with an additional 13,000 square feet at the back of the building. With its centralized location in the Santa Clara County Library System, the Cupertino Public Library holds a large collection.
We have the Cupertino collection and we have the Central Reference collection located here as well. That means people in the Cupertino community are particularly fortunate because they have everything right here in this building.
The Central Reference is a collection of references and resources that some of the smaller libraries would not have,
such as annotated California and U.S. law codes. We have the administrative code. We have topographic maps. We have a large collection of California and Western Americana. We have a large collection of business information.
To get to all this information, the library's catalog is on microfilm. The microfilm readers are scattered around the library. It is split up into 2 indexes, author and subject.
We also have InfoTrack and magazine article summaries, which are 2 services on CD, which give you great indexes to information in periodicals.
In addition to books, periodicals, newspapers, pamphlets, and records,
we have CDs, we have audio cassettes, including books on tape, we have video cassettes, we also have public use computers in both the children's room and the adult room.
The public use computers, a donation of Apple Computer, are 2 Macintosh SEs, an image writer and a laser writer printer located in the adults' room. Also contributed were 2 Apple II GSs, a Mac SE, and an image writer printer for the children's room. In addition, Apple Computer gave the library a Mac II with a CD-ROM player located in the adult reference desk. There you can retrieve information from the electronic encyclopedia, facts on file, and the Guinness Disc of World Records, all on CD-ROMs.
For the public use computers, people can come in and use those computers. They're free of charge. The only charge is for printing. It's 10 cents a page for the image writer printer and 25 cents a page for the laser writer.
Beyond books, periodicals, pamphlets, newspapers, records, CDs, audio cassettes, videotape cassettes, and public use computers,
we have a very strong children's program. We present 5 story times a week. We have a weekly bedtime story time on Tuesday evenings at 7:30, and that's for children ages 3½ to 8. We also have 2 story times on Wednesday mornings at 10:15 and 11:15, and these are for children ages 2½ to 3½. We also have on Thursday morning 2 more story times. One at 10:05, which is for children ages 1½ to 2½, and the last story time that we have is at 10:45 on Thursday morning, and that is for children ages 3½ to 6. And because of the large interest and the large number of children that we have in this age group, we have to ask people that they pre-register for these particular sessions.
There is also a library commission consisting of 5 citizens. They volunteer their time to meet on a monthly basis and advises the City Council on matters having to do with the library.
One of their best projects has been to petition the city for the Sunday service. Cupertino was the first community to offer Sunday service of any of the libraries in our system, and now several other libraries have followed suit.
The Cupertino Public Library is located across the Civic Center Plaza from City Hall at 10400 Torrey Avenue. Library hours are Monday and Tuesday 12 noon to 9 p.m., Wednesday 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., Thursday, Friday, and Saturday 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Sunday from 12 noon to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. For more information about the Cupertino Public Library, call 253-6212. Reporting for City Beat, this is Robert Kim.
Good balance, eye-hand coordination, and motor skills are essential to any beginning tennis player. To help kids develop these skills, the City of Cupertino now offers a special Pee Wee tennis class for children aged 3 to 6 years old at the Cupertino Sports Center. Chuck Doherty, the tennis coordinator at the center, described the Pee Wee class as a great way to teach kids the basics.
We see it as teaching young children the prerequisite motor skills that children need to learn prior to really learning to play tennis. So we work on a lot of the basic skills like eye-hand coordination and balance, timing and rhythm, watching the ball, visual tracking, and develop those basic skills that are kind of prerequisites really to any sport, not just tennis.
Each class is kept to a limit of 2 to 4 participants due to the fact that younger children require a greater degree of supervision and individual attention. In addition to this, a parent is required to attend each class to assist the instructor and get involved with each child in the learning process. In addition to basic motor skills, Doherty also mentioned several other positive benefits of the Pee Wee tennis program.
I think it's the exposure to the activities and learning to take instruction from other adults besides their parents, being around other children. There's a socialization value to that, and being exposed to a motor activity that will contribute to their overall growth and development in general.
For those interested in signing up, classes are held year-round at the Cupertino Sports Center, and more information can be found by calling 865-1384 or by stopping by the Quinlan Community Center at 10185 North Stelling Road. For City Beat, this is Dave Zemke.
At the turn of the century, who could have predicted the incredible changes Cupertino has gone through, such as its growth in population and its metamorphosis from a city of agriculture to one of industry? And now, as Cupertino approaches the turn of another century, who can predict the Cupertino of tomorrow? Today, members from the Citizens Goals Committee are meeting the challenge of developing both a physical as well as a social vision of Cupertino in the year 2000 and beyond. The 75-member Goals Committee is made up of residents, educators, business people, retailers, and developers, each lending a unique perspective of the community. These citizens, together with city planners and outside consultants, are working together to review and revise Cupertino's general plan as required under California state law.
And the general plan is the document that contains all the policies and action items for land use and transportation, for housing. These are the guidelines that really, the basis of the future of Cupertino is based on this. And the general plan is revised every few years, and this is the time. And we've gotten a large citizens group involved in the first phase of it. There are certain things that a general plan has to cover by state law. You have to have land use, you have to have open space, transportation, and housing, maybe one or two others, public safety. You must have policies and plans for dealing with these various areas. The Goals Committee is organized somewhat along those same lines. There are 5 subcommittees of the Goals Committee: transportation, housing, land use, parks, and economic development. So they are meeting separately for a number of times. They meet separately. Sometimes they meet as a whole. And they develop their own policies and goals for these different areas. And then they come back and compare their notes and go back and work some more.
One initial proposal that has been supported unanimously by members of the Goals Committee is the suggestion of a community focal point, a place which captures and exudes a strong Cupertino identity.
They identified very early on that they would like to strengthen the city identity, and they would like to establish an area that would be the heart of the city that everyone would recognize as the heart of the city. And an urban design consultant was hired to try to help them develop this idea. The area that he focused on as having the greatest potential to develop as Cupertino's heart is the town center area, where the towers are. In the back, there's an amphitheater with some green space. The Goals Committee is talking about ways that might be used to draw the public more into that area, to offer them some reason to come back, and perhaps encourage some activities in that area that would really make that the focal point of Cupertino. There would be a number of changes you'd have to make to achieve that, like the intersection at Stevens Creek Boulevard and De Anza Boulevard might be changed to make it more friendly to pedestrians, that you didn't have to cross this great highway to get across. And there'd have to be something more to draw people from the street back into this area. That's an idea that they're looking into.
Goals Committee members, some who even participated back in 1972 when the general plan was last revised, have found the crash course in city planning to be quite worthwhile.
I feel so strongly about the fact that I've gotten so much from this community that my serving on the Goals Committee was a way of paying back a small portion of what I've received. However, it's turned out that I've gotten even more out of it. I've learned so much about the city and about the people that work here and their goals and their ideals. And I think that we really have a community that's well run, and I feel really glad about that.
Well, I've been interested in city affairs for a long time, and I attend a lot of meetings. I think it started off with a real bang. We did a lot of brainstorming at the beginning, and we had some hired facilitators. There were a team of 11 people hired by the city, and the brainstorming sessions were really invaluable to get all the ideas out on the table. I think at this point, we need to spend more time talking among ourselves.
Gone are the days of mega growth in the city. A population decline by the year 2000, development build-out, and a dramatic shift in age distribution will undoubtedly reflect all of the committee's recommended changes to the general plan. These recommendations, compiled within a strategy document, will then become the foundation by which the Planning Commission and the City Council will review the general plan in 1991.
The Planning Commission and ultimately the City Council will have the final say, but it's the citizens who get to be the foundation for these new directions, and this really helps the Planning Commission and the City Council know more what the citizens want.
I plan to continue as a participant in the general plan process, because the Planning Commission and the Council will be dealing with recommendations as well. They'll be holding public hearings, and I intend to attend as many of those as I possibly can and urge other people to become involved in the process as well.
The fully revised general plan will be adopted by February of 1991. For City Beat, I'm Kellen Yamada.
For comments and suggestions regarding City Beat, write to this address.